We had a little hiatus because I think everybody came down with SARS / coronavirus /
Dos Equis
virus. We pretty much had everything here in the office, so
Yeah.
we've been out of commission a little bit, a couple of us. It's been fun, but we're back and we're doing the shows again and, getting in the old groove, if you will. How about you guys? Yeah, that's awesome. So today, I think we are talking about customer service has to be, wait for it, legendary. And so this is one of the important factors of retention. What have we been talking about the last couple weeks in this show, just to remind our avid listeners?
Sure. So going back, we talked about things like onboarding, an important first step, and having that right experience right out of the gate. So customer onboarding. We also talked about making our product sticky. So we gave customers a reason to come back. And on our last show, we talked about using data. I think I'm missing one in there, but
got goals, get data.
That's right, yeah.
And this whole series is about retention because we're talking software as a service, and one of the most important aspects of scaling a software business is holding on to those customers.
Yeah.
You spend the money to get them in with marketing and sales, and you just want to get them in a big bear hug and say, you're not leaving.
Keep them
there.
Yeah.
So that's really what this is all about. Is this show is the bear hug for software, making sure that they just can't get out.
Yeah.
It puts the lotion on its skin is kind of the sub theme of this whole thing.
Yeah.
So today we're going to dive into customer service, talk a little bit about that, because that truly is an amazing retention piece, is having great customer service. So we'll go ahead and dive in. This says almost 80% of companies believe they provide exceptional service to their customers, but in reality, only about 3% of customers have that feeling in reciprocation.
Yeah.
So isn't that such a huge divide, is that we as software companies think that we've just we're killing it. We got that bear hug going, we're kissing them on the cheek, they're extremely happy, but the customer just they're not feeling the same thing.
Little lack of awareness there from the companies, and it can be difficult, but I think this is where customer service can play a big part in better understanding and getting a better pulse on what your customers are actually thinking, feeling, ways we can improve things about the product, things about the experience, and much more. I think that's why customer service is valuable, is because not only is it a huge piece for those users that get stuck at a point that need help, but we can learn a lot. So it's kind of an organic way to learn features that maybe we never thought of, or ways we can improve just the flow and experience. So it's a really great feedback mechanism for us to improve the experience, what we offer, things we may not have thought of, but that are needed. It's coming right from the customer, so let's listen. And so I think listening allows us to get better at this and understanding where the customer is really at. So customer service, a lot bigger than what we typically think of. It's not just kind of an afterthought. It's very helpful.
Well, and I think the issue that comes in here is really that people, they don't really say anything unless they have a problem.
Yeah.
And so us as customer service people, we might be answering tickets and we think we're solving things, but there's a lot of people out there that might not be getting their answers, not getting the service as quickly. And I think for most of our audience, you could think to probably some services that you use and customer experience that you've had, and in their mind you could see, okay, you reached out, they solved the problem, but in your mind you're thinking, well, that could have been a little bit faster. Maybe they didn't solve it exactly the way that I wanted. There's a lot of things where you're walking away with kind of a mediocre experience where you're going, okay, great. And on their side, they're checking that off as, oh, we achieved this. And so what we really need to do as part of customer service is also gain some real perspective on, are we truly delivering a legendary, can you say it like that? Legendary customer experience. So Yeah. So what do we got going on here?
Well, so basically the idea is that this whole process, everything that we're talking about from a retention perspective, it all kind of ties together. So we were talking to things on this end here, talking about the onboarding process. We're talking about collecting and setting goals and having data to support kind of where we're at and all the metrics. And the customer service piece kind of goes through the whole thing, but a lot of it is here where it gets kind of messy, what the users are doing, where they're challenged, where they're getting stuck. And this is kind of expansion and development, on the back end. So everything that's happening here and what we're doing with customer service can tie to all these areas while we're collecting a lot of data from this, the user activity as they're going through the product. All these pieces really truly tie together so we can improve our onboarding better by learning from our customer service.
So what I hear you saying is that customer service is really a spider's web.
It's central.
You hit one spot and it reverberates through
Definitely.
the entire thing. And so that's, if you don't know how spiders sense that something hit the net, it creates vibrations through the rest of it, they can crawl over. So, kind of like that.
Just like our spider
this is, I'm adding some science into this. I just want to make sure.
Highly scientific show.
It is.
Yeah.
We have to be educated, right? So I think this is like the meat and really one of the great parts of what we want to talk about today is you look at metrics and then you look at solutions. So how can you look at certain metrics around customer experience? We just had an episode about data, so data isn't just how many times someone hits a certain feature, are they coming back, how many active subscribers you have, but data also extends into customer experience and customer service that you're tracking other types of metrics. So it looks like we've got a number of them here that are really interesting. So what do we have, like ticket count?
Yeah, so how many tickets are coming in, right? Those are the support requests. We being bombarded or not getting any. I would say things that we want to take away, to your point, you kind of mentioned, there's people that are probably just frustrated that aren't even reaching out. Maybe your ticket count is low because people don't even know how to
fill out a support ticket.
Fill out a support ticket. So just a number of ways to look at this, but we have response time. So how quickly is that ticket being addressed? How are the users getting the feedback? Resolution time. How long does that take to get to solve the problem? So we might respond to them out of the gate, but we may have to look in and dig deeper. So before the resolution happens, number of interactions per ticket. So there might be a back and forth.
So I put a ticket in, and we have to have 8 email conversations.
Yeah, and I might say, okay, Andy,
versus 2.
can you please provide me with your invoice or some more information, right? And you're getting frustrated saying, don't you have access to my account?
Right.
Or maybe not, right?
Yeah,
maybe we're getting
sense.
right to it. So there's different steps in the process. Issue resolution rate. Yep.
So what's the percentage of issues that we're eventually solving and closing?
Yeah.
Preferred communication channel. I think that's a great one. Do people like chat versus phone, especially for your software? That might tell you a lot. That Net Promoter Score we talked about last time, where it's really about understanding would your customers refer you. I think that's a great metric in customer service. Obviously, kind of generic customer satisfaction, frequency of upsells, customer experience rating, and customer retention rate. One of the things that we do when we talk to our clients about, developing a great customer experience and all of that is to develop a couple of core KPIs and then one key critical metric. So maybe your critical metric is resolution time. How fast does it take to solve a problem? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 3 days? And that's something that's your critical metric that goes on the wall so that everybody in your entire company knows this is how fast we're solving problems. But then you've got a couple of these other ones that you pull out, like Net Promoter Score, ticket count, that are really just KPIs that hopefully lead up to that resolution time. So there's some ways to look at it, is that you want to pick a few. There's a lot that we can look at, but create a model that your team can comprehend what's going on and rally around driving one number to improvement.
Yeah, and I think you hit on a good point there, is defining which of those metrics matter most, the ones really to track. And that's something that you can get feedback from the customers on, because depending on how savvy your user base is, depending on how complex or simple your solution is, there's going to be different areas where maybe the person doesn't get, maybe users aren't going to get as frustrated with certain things as others. And so there's different areas to be looking. So if you could find out from your customers what matters most to them, then you can focus in on those. So that's
and I think one of the other things for people to look at is, we talked about when we were looking at metrics, is making sure you're combining information to create discoveries. And I think that applies here, is that if we're seeing a high churn rate in our software, or we're seeing a high rate where we're not getting return visitors after so many weeks. We had that chart where 100% of visitors come in the first week, but then maybe it drops down to only 40% of those that came back, signed up, come back the second week. And so if we have really high rates of loss there, but we don't have a high ticket count, or we don't have a lot of chats or visits to our support page, that is a discovery to kind of look at and say, okay, is there a reason why? Or potentially, are those people, the 40% that are moving to the second week, are those the customers that are actually interacting with customer support, and maybe they took the time to actually find it, or whatever it might be. So we talked about crossing discoveries so that you can interpret correctly. And so that's not just data within our software. I think we can take something like customer service and those metrics and interpolate, or correlate, or collate, whatever you want to call it, however you want to late it, and make sure that you really are understanding what's going on.
It's like that spider web.
It is. It's a, can you tell me about aardvarks, please? No? Okay.
I think that's next episode.
It is. Solutions. So what can we do? We look at a number of different ways that we can improve our customer experience. Obviously, again, even tracking metrics and trying to drive our team towards a critical, number is important. But we can do things, make sure we're staffing appropriately, understand common issues. If we're seeing the same problem pop up, how are we putting that in front of the customers? How are we solving it ahead of time? Does our entire support team understand it? Fix cause of issues, just mentioned that. So if we're seeing the same thing, how are we going in and making sure that we're being proactive rather than reactive, and letting support help drive some of that roadmap for us. What about some of these others?
So you want to take that feedback from customer service inquiries. You can do things like improving your training, both for the users as well as for your support team, knowledge base. So there's certain things that, going back to when we know what the common issues are, some of them we're going to realize, that's something that people are going to always need our help with. Others are going to be like, wow, people keep asking about that. Let's get this article to them, and most people could probably figure it out. So we can understand, how do we create a knowledge base from that? And so that'll allow us to eliminate some layers or barriers to support. So putting the right thing in front. So if you're giving them self-serve support tools before they fill out a ticket, that might help solve that in certain cases. So like I said, self-service resources, identifying additional customer needs. This is where we can start to add to the product roadmap. By understanding there's more opportunities maybe to grow, maybe just adding a certain feature that doesn't exist. But wow, there's all these inquiries that if we had that would improve things, improve the product, or maybe there's another product or whatever it is. But I think there's opportunity to learn and how you can better serve your customers there. I think I mentioned kind of identify staff training needs. And then you could take a lot of, kind of going back to, a lot of these are related. Templates, documentation and templating out responses and documentation and things like that. Again, for more efficiency. And then determining most effective support channels. So when we look at those number of support requests versus the ones that are resolved, and maybe the ones that are happily resolved for the customer? Is that typically when they get on the phone, or are we doing that through live chat? Or we want to look at the outcomes for all the different channels. And
Yeah.
I think on the next slide we talk about, some of the most popular channels that are out there, but your typical email support, live chat, phone,
Yeah.
etc. We want to get a sense. Every software is a little bit different, and some are going to work better with one way or another.
Yeah.
So we want to be cognizant of that.
I think the biggest thing, I kind of said it a little bit earlier, but with all of these, for me, it's about how do you drive being proactive rather than reactive. Are you putting things in front of users prior to them having a problem? Are you training people appropriately so they can foresee the issue and foresee the solution to be able to solve it quickly, versus having a very reactional customer experience or customer support team where it's, tickets are coming in, we've chickens with our heads cut off, aardvarks with your heads cut off running around. And I don't know what aardvarks do, but they're doing something without their heads, and that's a concern. So, yeah.
Yep. So again, those common support channels, I think it's important to know what your customers prefer and what's most effective. But the common ones that are out there, this is U.S. consumers. They prefer phone, right? A lot of times people want to talk to someone, and then you have to think about what does that process look like. Or they can have to go through a number of steps and a number of prompts to get there. So again, the more effective, the more efficient, the happier your customers are going to be. Email, live chat, online knowledge base,
Click to call, support automation.
Yep.
And then there's even customer forums, which is another
Yeah.
big channel, having customers help each other out.
Yep.
I definitely know from data and my own personal experience that chat seems to be one of the faster growing ones. It's so easy, and I'm seeing that now within software platforms. You log in, and there's always a chat available to talk to somebody and get an answer, which can be really nice for the support team as well, because what that chat can do is integrate with other systems to say what page they're on, potentially what their path to get there was. And so soon as the ticket opens and someone opens that chat, that you've got some information to help solve the problem beyond what the person's providing.
I think something that's interesting that is happening with chat is through bots and things like that. We're able to tie some of those elements together. So it might be first, based on those initial questions, they're going to send you documentation. And then if that doesn't help, then okay, let me get you on with somebody. And if you prefer live chat, or maybe there is a click to call to connect. So there's some cool things that are happening with kind of chat. And I think that's becoming kind of the hub of it all, and then getting you to the right, based on what the person wants and what their challenge is, get them to the right solution.
Yeah,
so
that mix of bots and live people is becoming more advanced and unique, is that, bots can help solve the problem, but then raise it up to a human level once it needs to get there.
The cool thing about that too is it's collecting all of that data so you can understand. To your point, if we're not looking at those metrics that we showed and we're not thinking about being proactive and how we can solve them, we're just going to keep getting bombarded and never understand it. But this is all going to help us.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, kind of along that line, we always want to get a sense of kind of everything that's coming in. You're going to be hearing from customers in a number of different ways. Forums, that's a great one, because those forums are a good place for you to listen, to understand not just what the questions are, but what those sophisticated, those really active users are saying, because they're going to give you insight, kind of another perspective that'll be very valuable. And that's also a good sense for community building.
I know some, softwares are afraid of forums because you never know what can happen, and you have to moderate.
Lose control.
Yeah, and if you moderate too much to a point that, people are having problems, they can see that you're, moderating that voice. So I definitely see why a lot of softwares kind of toe that line. You see companies like Google are really big on forums for products like, Gmail and these other ones, because they can have these databases, and they can kind of weather through some of the negative comments that happen. But that is definitely a risk for a newer software with that type of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
But I agree. I think this 360 customer view is really important. Is that, again, back to our past episode, the data about usage, but then combining that with what we're gathering here, whether that's specific metrics, it's customer quotes, it's things like the NPS score, it's knowledge documents, and all of these things, and not letting it get lost is the biggest. I think as organizations, especially early on, we sometimes forget to build in the systems to document these things and create libraries. But the last thing you want to do is be 3 years into your product and not have a good system that has kept track of what are the answers that you've provided, what are the metrics, what is the great knowledge documents that some of our employees have created to send customers. This stuff you want to, from the beginning, start to be building a system that brings all of this stuff together, so you can really understand your customer and your system and processes and the metrics.
Yeah, and that could be super valuable down the road as you build up the historical foundation of kind of inquiries and how you grow from a support standpoint. And then I think our last slide here talks about just value, right? So you may have to invest some time, some resources, some dollars into tools to support, your customer service, training, staff members, etc. But keep in mind, so 84% of customers would pay more to guarantee a good experience. That's pretty powerful. You're increasing the value of your product by providing good service. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind. And then everything else that we can use, customer service, customer support, to learn more about our customers and how we can be more efficient and what product features are working, what aren't, what's missing. There's a lot that we can learn and help grow from there.
And we're doing our other show on Fridays. It's about spin out, where it's really product development. How do you develop a product? And one of the pieces in strategic planning was looking at, how much do your customers care about customer service for your type of product. And we said, for a gaming company or a gaming app, it might be significantly low. But for a business-to-business accounting software or something, customer service might be extremely high. And so it's really, I think, not only determining that in strategic planning, but understanding that that is a tie to that value and what you can charge. And even what you go out to the marketplace, we did a branding series, many moons ago, and that talked a lot about, what are our unique value propositions that we're taking out to the marketplace and saying, there is no one else like us. For B2B, having the top-notch customer service where you can access us across channels, our response time is low, our NPS score is high, that's something we can take out to the marketplace and say, look, you may be looking at other accounting softwares, but here's the reason you want to use us. And then look at this stat, is that if all of those numbers are great and we deliver that great customer service and we can prove it, now there's more value, we can sell easier and charge more. So it's really interesting how this simple stat, tied with what we just talked about, going back to product development to really think about it ahead of time, and then tied to marketing and sales to really be something to help you grow and scale the business from a top of funnel perspective. This stuff, that's where, like we were talking earlier, spider webs, episode of spider webs, everything, every touch reverberates throughout the entire web of your software product.
It is all connected. So I think that's all we have for
inspirational.
Today. Yeah,
it's all connected.
It's all connected.
So I think that's what we've got. This was a great piece. We talked about data, customer service. Next week we are talking about Aardvarks, which does have a lot to do with experience journey mapping. So really, this is actually a fun one for me. So I do think is the real deal, dude. But this one's a cool one for me is experience mapping. My approach with everything, I like exercises. This one is very exercise based of, helping understand the experience. And we'll talk about, how you actually can go through a process to make that better. So that should be pretty fun. And I'll find some way to include aardvarks into this sucker.
All right.
But yeah, so that was good. Give us your best. Last week when we did this, I had my legendary announcer voice, where you go, "Hello! Today's episode is going to be legendary." So I really need you to end with a big, legendary.
So legendary
voice. Yeah, come on.
So your customer service needs to be, wait for it, legendary.
Look, I got him to do it. Look at that.
All right.
Awesome. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Check out the past episodes. We've got a bunch more coming up. And check out SaaS Coach. We've been adding a ton of articles, SaaS.coach, about how to improve growth across the board for marketing, website, all of that stuff associated to software companies. So check all that stuff out and tune in next Wednesday for our episode about experience mapping for aardvarks.
Got it.
We're out. See you.